Hello, everyone. My name is Seth Seward. I'm Assistant Director for Alumni Groups for Miami University's Alumni Association. We're here for part two of our conversation on the 40th anniversary of the Bridges program. So we want to bring in the folks who are running the program currently. So we have Dr. Jonika Adkins, who is Senior Assistant Director for Miami University Student Success Center. And she does the work with our Bridges Scholars Program. And then we have alumna Jonika Moore as well. She is Senior Associate Director, Diversity Initiatives for Miami University's admissions office, and she does the admissions work of bringing students here through the Bridges program. And so we, at our last discussion, we had some of our founders talking about their experience. We want to make sure we have some archived evidence of the Bridges program when it started in the early 80s in 1981. And if you can bring up some of those brochures. So here's like the first brochure of the Bridges program that convened in the school year of 1981 and 1982. We have folks from all over Ohio that came to a campus for one weekend, which is not the multiple cohorts that we have now that Jonika does. So we had a little 100 and so folks come in from all around Ohio for that day. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and have a wonderful discussion going on. And so I'm just curious, like, how did you both end up coming to Miami University, and how did that experience lead to the work that you're doing now? I'll start with Jonika, and then Dr. Adkins can go after that.
Thank you, Seth. So I promise I will be brief because I can be long-winded about this story of coming to Miami. So I wasn't really aware of Miami University prior to having a visit here. There was an admission counselor. Her name was Janice Edwards. I remember her very distinctly, just classy, put together. The first woman that I saw with a natural hairstyle, came up and brought a busload of students from my high school and from Dayton, Ohio, up to visit Miami. And that was my first introduction to Miami University. And so from there, it really was about applying. I really only applied to schools in Dayton and Miami University. That was the two options. Prior to that, I really didn't have an idea of going to college. I thought you had to have money to go to college and all of those sorts of things, be in a different financial situation. I'm a first generation college student raised by grandparents. And so my perspective about college was not very broad. And so after that visit, applied to Miami, had an amazing experience. I coined myself of having two undergraduate experiences. And so during my second undergraduate experience, I worked in the Office of Admission under Bob Hart. He was the director of multicultural recruitment. Some of you, if you're an alum, remember the Multicultural Leadership Program. So I was a student worker under that program. Now, sad to say that during that time frame, Bridges was not active. It was not an active recruitment program that was happening at Miami University. So I assisted with the Multicultural Leadership Program. I was an education major, and I talked to Mr. Hart, like, how do I do this as a job? I knew that I wanted to be an educator, but not necessarily a teacher in the classroom. And he sort of guided me. You go to grad school. I ended up going to Ball State for graduate school and actually working in their Office of Admission of pre-college programs, and ended up in a whole nother trajectory. Did not start at admission, went into career development. So the other end of the spectrum. And then there was an opportunity for me to come back to Miami and work as an assistant director in the same team to support students with getting recruited to Miami. And that was 2007. And that was when the Bridges program, at the time thinking it was a brand new initiative, was reintroduced. And I initiated that program, or reinvigorated that program, in 2007. Now I know, and it was my colleague Monica, which I'll volley to her, that made me aware that there was a long, rich history in regards to the Bridges program.
Yes. So I guess the way that I ended up at Miami, Miami was actually last on my list of colleges to attend. I had been accepted to Ohio University, and that's where I thought I was going. And what happened was my mother had two friends who had children who were at Miami. And so I lived, in Cincinnati. And so we drove up to look at the campus, liked the campus. And, I ended up coming here. And so I was very late in the admissions process. I think when I visited the campus, I think the students, it might have been like spring break or something like that, because there weren't any students here. But once I got here, one of the, I guess, challenges that I had was that I didn't do so well on my ACTs. And as a result, they put me in a program while I was here to kind of support me and to support me academically, make sure I had tutors and so forth. And so that was through the Center for Black Culture and Learning. And I used to always wonder, how do they get these kinds of jobs? At the time, I was a public administration major and minoring in gerontology. And so, but I couldn't figure out how did people who work for colleges and universities get there. I also ended up with a job working for a area coordinator. And in that particular role, I answered phones. And so this was somebody else who was working for the university. And so I just couldn't figure out how to do that. But once I got to a point where I was about to graduate from Miami, I was really pleased with the fact that the Center for Black Culture and Learning was very helpful to me. And in some way, I wanted to give back. And so when I got back to Cincinnati, a little bit after I graduated from Miami, I was able to do various workshops for younger people who were getting ready to go to college. And so that was probably my first introduction to, I guess, really being a part of the higher education community, although I was kind of unofficially part of it. So I went on to graduate school. And once I went to graduate school and started working on my doctorate, that's when I really got the opportunity to really work in higher education. So I started off at the College of Mount St. Joseph. And then I went on to the University of Dayton. And in both of those positions, I worked in what was then called Multicultural Affairs. And then I've also worked for Cincinnati Youth Collaborative, where we work to help get students into college. So really helping high school students to get into college. And then along my, I guess, journey, I've always wanted to work from Miami. And so this opportunity, my current position opened up, and here I am at Miami. And one of the things that I was asked to do when I got here was to try to build a community for the Bridges students. And so we call that program Bridges Scholars. So Bridges Scholars are those students who are in the Bridges program, but who are now Miami students. And so I work with them to try to build a community. That's just part of what I do.
Wonderful. So it's great to hear about coming to Miami and how it helped to influence what you're doing currently. I want to make sure that I preface what I mentioned earlier. The Bridges program was started by Black alumni, Wayne Dancey and Doug Banks, through the work in ASG for the Minority Affairs area there during their time. It was carried out by alumnus Larry Young under the Office of Minority Affairs for that first cohort of Bridges students to come. And so we know that there are high achieving students that come from all around Ohio, also from out of state. And so now that it has the multiple weekends of students coming in from all over the state of Ohio from underrepresented backgrounds, Jonika, can you tell us about that work that you do, helping to bring these students for a 2-day visit onto campus?
Yes, of course. And so in 2007, when the program reignited the program, it was like through a recommendation process. So we would go to the local Cincinnati Dayton high school counselors, and they would recommend students. So that first, in 2007, that first cohort was about 44, mainly Black African American students from the Cincinnati Dayton area. And then when I transitioned in 2010, we had gotten it up to 3 Sunday Mondays. So we do a Sunday and a Monday, and they come to campus from that Sunday to Monday. It was about 206 students. And then when I transitioned back, by the time I transitioned back, they had increased it to 4 sessions, up to 600 students. So we do about 150 students per session. And we've gone from a recommendation process to an application process where really the premise is to try to give the students a soft focus on the main application that they have to do for admission. So it's not as time consuming, but it follows them through the steps. It allows them to log into the system so they can get comfortable and familiar with that process. And then they come on a Sunday, which we provide transportation to and from major cities in Ohio. So typically our first session is Columbus, the Columbus area, I have to think about it, or Central Ohio area. And then the second session is Cincinnati Dayton, which includes Hamilton, Middletown. And students can come to any session. They can apply for any session based on their schedule, but we prioritize students from the respective cities just so they could utilize the transportation and get to campus. We don't want that to be a barrier. And usually the third session is Cleveland, Toledo, and Akron. And then the fourth session is out of state. So we pick up students from the Cincinnati, Dayton airports and Greyhound bus stations and the Megabus bus station. And we reimburse their travel to come to campus. Because again, trying to eliminate as many barriers to coming to visit campus as possible. So think of the Sunday as the student focused day. So we work with student organizations such as the Greek letter organizations, Delta Sigma Theta, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We have the Indian Student Association, Black Student Association. They sponsor one session and they will host a social. We're trying to give the student an experience of how it's like to be the fun part, the engaging part of student life. But it's on a Sunday, so we know not a lot of actual events happen on Sunday, so we kind of create that event. We do a diversity dialogue, which was actually initiated by a participant in the program. So when I came back in 2015, myself and Kelsey Broomfield, who is also a Miami alum, she worked on my team. We looked through every schedule of the program and went through and took the things that we thought we want to incorporate this back into the program, or we don't want to do this program. And so we kind of started fresh in 2015 and we collect feedback. And one of the points that the student participants stated was, it's an amazing program. I connect with all of these diverse students, but we don't explicitly talk about diversity in the Bridges program. And they were right. And so we worked with the College of Education, Health and Society. They offered a PhD graduate student to assist us in creating what is now known as a diversity dialogue. They created the curriculum for that initial program. So that happens on the Sunday. We do a student panel. They have a dinner. All of that is more of the information session and tour, obviously, right? We got to give them the overview of Miami. And then we call Monday sort of the academic day or the faculty staff day. They wake up very early, around 7 o'clock to be at an 8:30 panel. They eat breakfast in the dining hall. And then they sit on a panel, which my colleague Monica sits on, to make them aware of residence life, the honors program, the Student Success Center, Ranella Learning Center, career services. So giving them a slice of all the many offices and areas that support their success on campus. And then they spend 2 hours in the academic module of their choice. They rank their top 3 when they are admitted to the program, and we put them in a module so they can spend that time with faculty and staff. We have a resource fair with offices. Res Life is there, Honors is there, Office of Student Disability Support is there, so that students can connect. And then the thing that gets the highest rating is the closing luncheon that we have with key faculty, staff, administrators, Dr. Crawford, We had our first Bridges program with our new Vice President for Institutional Diversity, Dr. Alcalde. So they get that interaction with these key individuals, and that usually always is the highest ranked thing on the survey. It's like, we love the faculty. They love the fact that our faculty, staff, and administrators president are accessible, that they have access. And we tell them that all the time. Like, I have to make an appointment with the administration person. You can walk up to the president's office and connect with him, that kind of thing. So making the students aware of how accessible our leadership is here at Miami, and that faculty and staff. So it's literally 24 hours. They get a fee waiver if they apply to Miami. And if they decide and enroll and come to the Oxford campus, they can get a scholarship anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 for your renewable. So if you think about that, for 24 hours, you get $20,000 basically.
So she does a great job with the program. I did witness it with my own eyes with the students coming there, and I did go to the big luncheon. And it gives us a chance to interact with the prospective high school students. And some of them told me that they would be coming to Miami because of all that was going on there. And being a Black alum, I also previously was a chaperone for the buses that came from Columbus, and some of our Black alumni throughout the years worked with Jonika to chaperone the buses coming down from different areas.
Yeah, shout out to the alums. Could not do it without you. Could not do it.
So glad to do it a few years back. And so once the students come, they decide to come and they enroll to the program. Jonika, what is the figure as far as students that are accepted through the applications?
Yeah. So about 97% of the students who participate in the Bridges program will apply to Miami, and we accept about that amount. And then overall, it's between 45% and 50% of those students who we admit decide to join the Miami family, which is significantly higher than our overall, what we like to call yield rate, which is getting a student that's admitted to join the Miami family.
And so once they enroll here, and Jonika hands them off here to Dr. Adkins, who does great work in our Student Success Center through our Bridges Scholars Program. And so the students are here with the supports, that they need on campus. And so, Dr. Adkins, can you tell us about all the work that you do with the Bridges Scholars Program?
Okay, so yes, so once the students are Miami students, they are also Bridges Scholars. And so as Bridges Scholars, what we try to do is help them in their transition to college, and also help them to build community. Some of the students they've had such a great experience in the Bridges High School program that once they get here, a lot of times there's looking for their friends and looking for the Bridges community. And so many years ago, students were saying that they wanted, some kind of community where they could connect with other Bridges students. And so that's why we have Bridges Scholars. Bridges Scholars offers students an opportunity to have a student success coach, which is basically me. And so what I do is address any questions or concerns they may have. It can be everything from academic issues to financial issues, social issues, just anything that can pose as a potential threat to their success. We try to address those things. We also have a living learning community, and the living learning community is an opportunity for Bridges Scholars to connect with each other, where they will live in the same residence hall. Also, they will have a class together, and they can connect in the residence hall through various programming opportunities that are designed particularly for them. And then also we have a connection with, we call it the Neighborhood LLC. And so that consists of Bridges Scholars Also the Government Relations Network, which Randy Thomas, who's also a Miami alum, oversees. And then also Michelle Thomas, Randy's wife, oversees a program called Passport. And so all of us work together as one big LLC called the Neighborhood LLC. And then we also do separate things for our individual LLCs. And so the LLCs are a great way for students to connect who are bridges, and they have various activities that they may do together. And also, they also form a lot of informal kinds of relationships with one another, so that they can connect because they all have bridges in common. We also have the Bridges Scholars Student Organization, and it was started maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. Some of the students who helped with starting Bridges Scholars Student Organization, Taylor Gray was one of the students, Lauren Poitras, also Elena Arduin. And so there were several other students. And so there were probably about 10 students in all who helped with the founding of Bridges Scholars Student Organization. And today, there are approximately 400 students who are part of that organization. And so they participate in various diversity related activities, activities just to help build social connections, and then also activities to help them in their professional development. So they do those sorts of things. Also, we try to encourage our Bridges Scholars to participate in the Made at Miami program, which is sponsored by the Center for Student Diversity and Inclusion. And so many of them will participate in that. It helps them, again, with their transition to college. And then the other thing that we try to do with our Bridges Scholars is we have a check-in. So usually about between 4 to 6 weeks into the semester, one of the things that I'll do is reach out to all of our Bridges Scholars who are in their first year just to see how they're doing. And so we'll have a 10 or 15-minute meeting just to address their concerns, to see how that transition is going, making sure that they know who their advisor is. And if they don't know who their advisor is, sharing with them how to locate who the advisor is. We also want to make sure that they know how to read and access their degree audit report. That's something that's very important in order for them to stay on track and to graduate. And so we try to do anything that we can to make sure that that transition is going smoothly and to address any concerns that the students may have. One good thing about the work that we're doing is that it's located within the Student Success Center. And so in that particular role that I have as a member of the Student Success Center team, we have connections to financial aid, the registrar's office, of course, the admissions office, career services. And so we're all in the same division. And so, so many times students may have issues or concerns that may involve those other areas. And so we can easily try to resolve whatever those issues are that students might have. The other thing that I would like to mention is that sometimes we do understand that life happens, and we do have students who may have experiences where they're food insecure, or maybe their housing, they don't have housing. Sometimes they may be in the middle of a big paper and their laptop dies. And so we have a program called Miami Cares, which also allows students the opportunity to get, the things that they may need in terms of, food or shelter, or a laptop. And so those are things that are very important. And so our office, tries to address all of those. And so we, I guess, see ourselves as a office that um, tries to come up with solutions to students' problems. And so those problems can range from everything from I'm new here at Miami, I don't know how to connect with other students. How do I get involved? Or we may have things where that are really serious. Where I'll give an example. I just had a student not too long ago who went home over the holiday break and lost her dad to COVID, and then he was the primary person who was taking care of her tuition and all of that, and so that changes everything for that student. And so we'll try to work with students in those kinds of situations as well to make sure that they have whatever they need, and to make sure that if there's something we can do as a university community to help the student with whatever they're going through. We want to just make sure that we're there to try to do it.
So that work is critical.
Yeah.
The work is critical.
Yeah.
So we salute you for that, because the students need somebody like you to be an outlet and a resource for while they're on campus. And so this is the 40th anniversary of the Bridges program, and it also happens to fall on Black History Month. And
yes.
And it was founded by Black alumni when they were students at Miami. And so with that combination of things happening, what does that mean to you? So I'll start with Dr. Adkins and go with Jonika.
I think for me, I'm really proud to, even have a small role in it. I am proud to see the longevity that the program has had, 40 years. When I got here, I had no idea it had been around for 40 years. I don't remember anything about Bridges when I was a student here. But I had the opportunity, I guess one day I was, thinking about it, I wonder, when did Bridges get started? And I had the opportunity to meet with Jackie Johnson, our university archivist, and she was able to pull all of this information. I'm like, 40 years? And then I was able to meet with, Mr. Wayne Dancey spoke to a class that I was teaching. So as I mentioned before, we have the LLC and there's a class associated with it. And so in that particular class, he was able to speak to some of our other Bridges scholars, and just to learn about it and to learn the power of the student voice, because all of this came about because of students. And so it just makes me feel very proud to be a part of it. I know that the program and the work that Jonika and her team has done has helped a lot of students, because the students get a scholarship. And so I'm sure that it has helped many families. And I think it's just really great to be part of such a great program.
I most definitely echo what Dr. Adkins, Monica, has said about that. Just extremely proud. Again, Dr. Adkins, after she did her research, is the one that made me aware that there was a history of the program. I feel sort of empowered and legacy on the shoulder to ensure that this program has longevity. Now it might change. It might, the populations that we work with might grow or shrink depending on what the diversity goals of the university is. However, I think that a program like Bridges will always be necessary to allow for students to have access to Miami. When the program was reinvigorated in 2007, the really two initiatives were to allow students who might have a negative perception of Miami to come to campus and see what Miami actually is, what it's about, what are our values, connect with the students, which I think are the heart of the campus, are the students and the faculty and staff, as well as also allow for, like I said before, access. I think that, like, for example, students such as myself just didn't think you could, or didn't think you could afford, or didn't think, even though it's 45 minutes away, for some students, 45 minutes away from where I was, for some students, for example, our Cleveland students, it's equal distance than Chicago, right? So is that an opportunity for me? Can I feel at home away from home? And so Bridges allowed for us to give those high school students that glimpse, that connection. And so for me, it is just super important that Bridges is institutionalized, which I believe that it is. So no matter if I'm sitting in the seat, Dr. Adkins is sitting in the seat, Bridges will happen. And that is what is most important to me, as far as continuing the legacy and making sure what these amazing students started 40 years ago continues on. Even if it changes, it grows, it morphs depending on the population. The program at its core is about access and awareness.
A little bit more about the founders, Wayne Dancey and Doug Banks, both were class of 1981. They met their wives here. They sent their children here. They've done other things to help the university when they're here. I was here when their children were here, and my dad and Doug and Wayne are all founding members of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity chapter here at Kappa Delta. So they both take pride in Bridges and love to see the students coming through here and seeing that they're successful and all that good things. And so I want to make sure I salute them. And also alumnus Larry Young, who was an administrator to help carry out this first cohort of the program in 1981. So next question is, I'm going to pull up my questions here. So let's make them a little bit more broader question here. So, with Jonika, some of her folks from her era have been reaching out. Their kids are starting to consider college now.
How do we get this old? What happened?
Right.
And so what advice do you want to give them? Because I get the questions too of Black alumni that come to me specifically about the financial aid piece. So when should they start, and give like a general timeline as far as a resource for folks to look for that?
I appreciate that question. So typically what we would say as far as financial is concerned, if your son or daughter is thinking about going to college or two-year school or four-year school, is really that junior year. That junior year of high school, you should begin the process of searching out outside scholarships. Obviously, you should, as a first year and a second year in high school, think about signing up for requests for information from colleges. You fill out that form, we'll lovingly stalk you. So as long as you feel it, get into our system. And we have ways. We connect with a lot of institutions that connect with students that allow us to purchase or get their information. So that's how some students are like, how did you find me? We have partnerships with community-based organizations and all of that. However, if you want to be proactive, you can put your name in the system. And there's ways that you can do that through third party, like Princeton Review or a community-based organization. You can sign up. For example, we are a part of Coalition for College. A student can sign up for Coalition for College for free, and then universities get that information. So that's like a one-shot deal. You can fill out one form, and all of these universities can get your information. So as a first year and a second year in high school, start thinking about that. Not a lot of pressure. You can visit at that time, but really your first and second year should be about your courses. What classes are you taking in high school? And are you doing a progression? Now, parents, We don't need all APs in every subject. That's not necessary. But whatever the student loves, if their English is their thing and writing, let them be getting progressively more difficult as they go along. So thinking about their academics, but specifically about finances, one of the things I hear about families is, well, I'm looking for a full ride. Full rides at universities are very rare and limited. They're not, a bunch of students are not going to get, and when I mean full ride, that means tuition fees, room, and food are all paid for. That is rare. That is a rare thing. Usually a student has to apply for a scholarship and they get some sort of scholarship award, or they award that to a select few of students. Just thinking about, we get 30,000 applications here at Miami to bring in a class of about 4,000. All 4,000 of those students are not getting full rides or close to it at a school like Miami. And that is a norm. So I tell families, think about it, and I'm dating myself. Baskin Robbins. Y'all remember Baskin Robbins? 31 flavors at Baskin Robbins. So think about, as I'm encouraging you to apply for third-party or outside scholarships through the Thurgood Marshall College, the United Negro Scholarship Scholar, the Hispanic Serving Institution has a scholarship. And some of those are for historically Black colleges or Hispanic serving institutions, but some of them are just clearinghouses where they want to make sure students of color or first-generation college students or Pell eligible students get access to these monies. I encourage you to begin, especially now spring, they need to be looking at and applying for outside scholarships. Because I can tell you, for example, the Gates Scholarship, that deadline is January or February. So if you're a senior right now, you've missed that. That deadline is done. So that's why I tell juniors, families of juniors, you start that research process now in the spring. Over the summer, you get your things together and then you should start applying, right? Work on your essay, because typically the essays for these are similar, right? So you could make 1 or 2 essays and apply to several scholarships. And what that does is allows you to choose 31 flavors as opposed to 2 flavors, right? This is how much money mommy has to give you, and this is how much the school has to give you. So you got to pick the school that is the best financial fit. Having outside scholarships allows you to go to the school that you want to go to as opposed to the school you have to go to. So that is what I would recommend. Typically for colleges and universities, like for Miami, you're considered for scholarships based on your application for admission, with the exception of like scholarship programs, like our Presidential Fellows Program. You have to apply for that program. I know the University of Cincinnati has the Marion, right? Am I saying that right? Dr. Adkins, the Marion Spencer. I was saying that. They have a scholarship, and I think that comes with money as well. So there is a separate application process. So if you think about those things your junior year, then you will be ahead of the game for applying for any scholarships for your senior year. But I want us to move away from thinking, I just need to put all my eggs in a university basket and they're going to give me all the money. That's not how that works. So hopefully I answered that. Let me know, Seth, if I need to give a little bit more.
So if we have more questions, maybe we have to do a separate thing on the expound on that. A timeline. So thank you, Jonika, for providing that for folks. Hopefully they got something out of it. So Dr. Adkins, and so as you talked about the work of the students that you do get here on campus, talk to those students or any other students that are similar demographics. How can they be successful at a Miami University or like a PWI? How can they be a successful student from your opinion and your advice?
I think it has to start here. They have to believe that they can be successful, number one. Number two, I think that they have to put away the pride, because a lot of times, especially students who attend Miami, they have excelled in high school, okay? College is going to be a little different. And so a lot of times, because the students have excelled, they have a lot of pride about asking for help. And so we want to put that pride away and ask for help. Most universities, whether they come to Miami or they go somewhere else, most universities are going to have many people who are on campus and whose job it is to help them to be successful. And so we have various resources right here at Miami that are here that have people who want you to be successful and who are going to help you to be successful. But you have to reach out. And so that's number two. Number three, I think a student has to do their part. Okay. And that means you have to go to class. You have to do the assignments. You have to get help from the professors. Sometimes meet with professors, go to office hours, sometimes get a tutor. You have to do all of those kinds of things. And then I think also a student wants to get connected. And what I mean by that, you don't want to just be isolated in your room, but you do want to get out and connect with other students, get involved in student organizations, because the college experience is as social as it is academic. And so those things are important. And then the other thing, we want to make sure that by the time you graduate that you've had a fulfilling experience and that you're ready for whatever those next steps are. And so you want to also engage in various activities that will help you to accomplish your professional goals. You want to get connected to the Career Center to get those internships, get your resume reviewed, all of those kinds of things. And so we have people on campus who are experts in all of these areas. And so it's up to students to try to take care of all of those things. And so I tell students a lot of times to think of college as their job. Okay. And so there's certain responsibilities that come when you have a job. And so they have certain responsibilities that they have to take care of in order to be successful. And, college is a time where they're becoming adults. And as you become an adult, usually, you have to become more independent. And so we want to encourage students to do that, to be independent. But at the same time, we're still here to hold your hand as you go through your years of college.
Wonderful. That was great information from both of you. Kind of brought me back what Dr. Adkins was talking about from my time in Miami. I wish I would have done a few things a little bit better.
Yeah, me too, actually.
So I was like, okay, wow, I can go back at the time. So we did get some questions from the audience, and so we got a little bit more admission focused here. So some alumni that chimed in that want to know how they can get more information about the Bridges program. And so I'll read them generally here. Larry Burt, Black alum. So he wants to know specifically, does the Bridges program reach out to within the community and charter schools? How can he get literature other than online to share with students and families? To thank you for your help with a student that he reached out to. Larry's a superintendent of school up there in the Cleveland area, if I have that correct.
Yes.
So Jonika, go ahead.
Yeah. So prior to the pandemic, we would do mailings out to every high school that we had in our system to post posters. Well, during the pandemic, everything became more electronic. So that's why you don't there's not a Bridges brochure anymore. We might do a postcard to homes. This past year, we did a joint postcard. We do two. So Bridges is our diversity focused pre-college program, but we also have something called Summer Scholars, which is a 2-week summer experience, which is pre-college. So we did a joint postcard to all the students that we had in our system, inviting them to participate in either one of those programs. And so much of our things are electronic. Like we send emails, we send them to all the guidance counselors that we have in our system. We send them to all the community-based organizations that are in our system. So typically there is not a piece of paper that we mail out anymore. Also because of cost, to be honest, to redirect those costs to other things. Like for example, we had to create a virtual diversity experience during the pandemic because of the fact that we had to do Bridges Virtual, which that program continues and comes with scholarship because we understand one, access is super important. And we also understand post-pandemic that not everybody is going to be jumping at the bit to come face to face. They are still, some of our families, our students are wanting to do things virtual. So we have redirected funds to be able to host a virtual diversity experience as a complement to the face-to-face Bridges experience. So Larry, unfortunately, there's not a lot of paper that is exchanged. However, we do email every counselor. So if you want to provide me with a list of counselors from your school, we can make sure those individuals get inputted into our system. Because I doubt that we will do anything more than a postcard moving forward.
Okay, wonderful. And this is a similar question from alumna Bonnie Snyder Hamrick. She said she graduated with a degree in marketing and business in 1980. So she's my classmate, my dad. Grew up in Dayton, but now she lives in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
She says she works for an organization called Open Doors Asheville, and they work with 50 minority students and provide educational support, as well as helping expose these students to extracurricular activities, which they've been doing for 14 years. And they have their first group of students graduating from college.
Nice.
So she wants to know how she can get those students exposed to the Bridges program.
Yeah, so most definitely the same information. So the website is very easy. It's www.miamioh.edu/Bridges. It's the same. Nothing changes with the website year to year. Typically, the application becomes available in July. And it's for seniors. So those that will be graduating that year, so for example, next year it'll be for those students that will be coming in for fall 2023. That's who would be participating in the Bridges program in the fall of 2022. I have to think about it. Goodness, these years are just rolling past. Also, what I would recommend is I'm going to, Seth, if you don't mind, or Emily, to provide you with my email address. You are more than welcome to reach out to me with your contact information. We have a southern states regional representative that can be in contact with you. That would be your point of contact in regards to connecting with those students and making them aware any questions that you might have about the Bridges program or Miami in general. So we would love to partner with you and connect with you to ensure that those students are aware and have access, because we do an out-of-state session. We reimburse travel. If they fly, up to $300. If they drive, up to $200 for mileage for them to come, and we'll pick them if they drive themselves, obviously, or if they drive. But if they fly in, we pick them up from the Cincinnati and Dayton airport. So we do support out-of-state students attending the Bridges program.
Well, that was an excellent question. So I have some folks coming in from the South, and so when I was there for the big luncheon, I heard some folks came right from California.
Yes.
For the Bridges program. I'm like, wow, y'all reach a whole lot of folks here from all over.
We have some students. So 2019 was the last time it was live. We had students from Puerto Rico. We've had students from all over the world actually come to the Bridges program. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be a question for both of you, and I'll start with Dr. Adkins. And so, question that came in our the registration. So, where do you see the Bridges program going forward? Where do you hope to see as far as continuing the legacy of 40 years of the Bridges program? So, Dr. Adkins.
So, of course, I hope it continues, but I'll speak more about Bridges scholars. So one of the things that I would like to do is connect a little bit more with the academic areas of our university. We have a lot of students who are they're into things like research and writing and things of that nature. And I would like to see if we could partner maybe with some of the academic divisions of our university. Also, it would be great to have additional funding for programming because one of the things that Bridges Scholars is designed to do is to help those students who come from the Bridges High School program to, really connect once they get on campus. And so so we look for opportunities and, fun ways for them to connect with one another. And so I think those are probably two of the biggest things that I see in terms of programming. I also think that we need to do a little bit more in terms of, I guess, addressing some of the specific needs that some of the groups of students may have. For example, I think when it comes to Black students, for example, we have, really progressed, I think, as a Black community today. So we have a lot of students now who, they grew up in the suburbs and, have families who have, where they have parents who have gone to college. And so, but then we also have Black students who, are first generation and maybe from lower income backgrounds. And I think sometimes we kind of lump everybody together. But I think sometimes there's some specific needs that we need to do in order to address some of the things that some of those other students may be going through. And I would like to do that because all of them are part of Bridges, but sometimes the needs may be a little bit different.
Hey, thank you for answering that question. Jonika,
Yeah.
what do you see with the mission side of the Bridges program?
Well, the continued legacy, of course. I don't foresee this program going anywhere. Prior to coming into 2019, there had been conversations of having a fifth session of Bridges in the spring and that being focused on juniors. So those juniors that were ready, that wanted to apply, and would come basically in the spring, and then we would do the other 4 sessions in the fall. So I foresee as we, recover from the pandemic, that expanding the program will be a conversation that comes back on the table for us to be able to host more students, because the number 600 is not because that's all we want. The experience, like having 150 per session, as you all are aware, this year because of the pandemic, they stayed in Rosenthal, but normally they stay with current Miami students, right? So you have to recruit. Kudos to Monica, because Bridges Scholars come in full force. So they give back to the program. They volunteer during the program. They host students. They do, all sorts of things with the program. But that also, you get too much larger than that, the engagement wanes off. You're like, I want every student to be touched by someone, be able to, it's a current student or a faculty staff person or someone. And once you expand it out, you have outliers, right? You have the quiet students that's like in the background. So we don't want to really too many times go over the 150 per session. So that would mean that we would have to have more sessions. So the conversation has been on the table for us to expand the program. There is conversations, my hope and fingers crossed that we can have conversations about the scholarship, mainly in-state versus out-of-state. That's kind of where my focus is at this present moment, focusing on that, as well as my hope, and I know my boss is like, do not say that, but I'm gonna put it out in the atmosphere. So students who come to the Bridges program, in order to get the scholarship, you have to come to Oxford. That's how you get the scholarship. If you go to another campus and transfer, you don't get the scholarship. If you go to the regionals and relocate, you don't get the scholarship. And so my hope and goal is that no matter when you come into Miami, if you participated in Bridges, you get the scholarship and you're a Bridges scholar. That's a goal that I would like to work on, because what we found in the data is, I told you about 97% of the students apply. What we found is, over time, closer to 100 of them eventually apply to Miami. Now, they don't all come, but close to 100 of the Bridges participants at some point in their academic career, whether they're at the regional or they're at another university, apply to Miami. So I feel like if we were able to say, hey, Bridges, I see you applied. If you come to Miami at this point as a junior, you can get the scholarship. Or if you relocate from the regionals, if that's what you decide to do, you can get the scholarship. So those are some lofty goals that I have, that I would like to put out in the atmosphere, because I feel that they have engaged, they've connected to us. So if they apply at any point in their academic career, I want to honor them as Bridges.
Wow. So I really enjoyed this conversation. So we're going to come to a close here, but it just, both of you, from the standpoint of being alumni of color, and having a desire to come back and impact our students. And I'm sure you both can see yourselves in the students that come here. And so you can definitely relate to them. And so thank you for the work that you've done on campus, for bringing the students here, Jonika, and then while they're here, providing supports with Dr. Adkins. So thank you both for that work. We hope you enjoyed this conversation on the 40th anniversary of the Bridges program, again, founded by Black alumni Wayne Dancey and Doug Banks as students during their time at Miami. So we hope to continue to watch programming here through LLC. We'll have another conversation that I'll be a part of Miami Black First. So some of our Black alumni that were first in their fields. And we have lots of Black alumni that were first. So they're more of the recent ones that we'll be featuring tomorrow. So hopefully you can take a listen to that. It'll take place tomorrow at 6:30, and you can register for that, or you can watch previous programs, any programs through the LSC format. And thank you again, Jonika and Monica, for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching this, and take care and love and honor.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.